Hello all. Welcome to our video on ECMAScript, the scripting language standard that powers JavaScript. In many JavaScript interviews, surely you will get asked questions on ECMAScript, so it's essential to know about this. So in this video, I will take you through the evolution of ECMAScript from ES5 to ES13 with an example of each. So let's start with what is ECMAScript. ECMAScript stands for European Computer Manufacturer Association script. It is a standard for scripting language, and JavaScript is one of its most popular implementations. Therefore, ECMAScript is like a blueprint that outlines how the language should work, and JavaScript follows these guidelines to become a fully functional programming language. Here is a bit of history of JavaScript. Let's explore for a few seconds. JavaScript was created in 1995 and then it was submitted to ECMA International for standardization, which resulted in ECMAScript in 1997. After that, a major release that comes out in 2009, introducing significant features like strict mode, JSON support, array methods, etc. in 2009, called ES5 or ECMAScript 5. And then in 2015, they decided to switch to an annual release cycle of ECMAScript starting with ES6. But before we dive into the evolution of ECMAScript, let's quickly understand an important feature of ES5 called strict mode. I'll open Visual Studio Code Editor, and inside this JavaScript folder, I'll create new file called ecmascript.js for our ECMAScript examples. And I'll add the same file inside index.html file. Here I need to pass the ECMAScript file name. Also, I'll change the heading with ECMAScript example. Now in ECMAScript.js file, if we declare a variable called a equals to 5, and I'll print it to the console. Okay. Now we will see the expected output when we click on the go live and view the browser console. So here let me open the developer tool, and here we can see the output 5. However, if we apply the strict mode on top of this, and for apply strict mode, we need to write use strict inside quotes like this. If you want to use this strict mode on your program, then you have to write use strict at the top of the program. And by doing this, we will get an reference error saying A is not defined. And this is because we didn't define the variable A with keyword var, let, or const. If we define it with a var, we will get the expected output 5. Okay. So with strict mode, we must define variable before using them. And if you are an Angular developer, you might notice that strict mode is enabled by default in the tsconfig.json file. Let me quickly open the Angular project, and here I'll search strict for you. And inside this tsconfig.json file, here we can see it's set to true. And if you prefer not to use strict mode, you can set it to false. Okay, so this strict mode is the ECMAScript 5 feature. And in addition to strict mode, ES5 introduced several new array methods, including for each, map, filter, and reduce. And these features significantly improved JavaScript functionality and security. Now let's jump into the PPT and understand the evolution of ECMAScript. So as I mentioned earlier, the JavaScript team decided on an annual release cycle from ECMAScript starting from ES6. So in 2015, ECMAScript 6 was released, bringing significant changes to the language. ES6 introduced several key features, including template string, default arguments, arrow functions, let and const, and the spread operator with arrays. So let's explore one of these features, default arguments, with an example. Let me go back to the Visual Studio Code Editor, and here we will write the example of default argument. Default arguments in JavaScript allows you to assign a default value to the function parameter. So let's create a function called greet, and here I'll pass one parameter name equals to, I'll pass value world, and then open and close curly braces. So this is nothing but the default argument. We are passing the argument name with default value world. Now inside this function, I log the message backtick hello, comma, dollar name. And after this function body, I'll call the function greet with no parameter. Now save the changes and let's check the output in the browser. Here you can see we are getting hello world in the console. It means when calling the function, if no value is passed for name, it will use the default value, that is world. But if you passed a value like John, it will override this value. Save the changes and here you can see this time we are getting output hello John. Okay, so this is how default argument works. And I won't be covering each feature in depth. However, if you message me about a specific feature you would like to learn more about, I will try to cover it in a future video if I get a chance. So let's move on with the next ECMAScript version. Released in 2016 was ES7 or ECMAScript 7. It introduced the features like array.prototype.includes and the exponential operator. This exponential operator is used to calculate the power of a number. Before ES7, we use mat.power to calculate powers and passing the base and exponent as a parameters. But now with ES7, we can use the double asterisk operator to calculate powers in a more concise way. So let's try this as well. Let me log first math.power. This syntax we use before ES7. 2, 3. 2 to the power 3. In this case, we should get output 8. Okay. Now, I'll write one more console.log and here I'll write the syntax of exponential operator like 2 double asterisk 3. So in this syntax also, we will get the output 8. Here you can see we are getting 8 for line number 10 as well as 11. These additions made JavaScript more efficient and expressive. Next version is ECMAScript 8, released in 2017. And ES8 introduced the features like async await, object.values, and object.entries. These features simplified asynchronous programming and improved object manipulation. So let's take a closer look at object.values and object.entries. So inside Visual Studio Code Editor, here I'll write the example of object.values and object.entries. We use object.values if you want to get values from object, and we use object.entries if you want to convert object into an array. For example, here, let me create one object, const person equals to name Navya, comma age 10. Okay. And after that, I'll write console.log and inside this, I'll use object.values. Inside bracket, I'll pass person. Let me correct the spelling of const, C-O-N-S-T. Okay. Now, by writing this object.values, we can access the values of this person object like Navya and 10. So let me navigate to the browser and here you can see we are getting the value Navya and 10 in array. And similarly, if I log the person inside object.entries, then in this case, this object.entries will convert this object to an array. So let's check this as well. Here you can see we are getting the two array, one array with name Navya and second array with age 10. So it means if you want to convert any object into an array, then you can use object.entries. And if you want to access the values of object, then you can use object.values. Okay. So these methods can be handy when you need to iterate over an object values or key value pairs. And these two features was a part of ES8 released in 2017. Okay. Now the next year in 2018, ECMAScript 9 was released called ES9, bringing new features and enhancements to JavaScript. So ES9 introduced the features like REST or spread operators, asynchronous iterations, and promise.prototype.finally. So let's see the example of REST operator, which is represented by 3 dot. But note that the REST operator was introduced in ES6 for arrays and later extended to objects in ECMAScript 9. For the example of REST operator, I'll use the same object, that is person, and here I'll write constant obj result equals to, inside curly brackets I'll write 3 dot and then person, and after that I'll write console.log, and inside this log I'll call object result. Now save the changes, and here you can see we are getting the same object, name Navya and age 10. Okay, so these additions enhanced JavaScript capabilities and performance. Now next, in 2019, ES10 was released, bringing new features to JavaScript like array.prototype.flat, array.prototype.flatMap, and object.fromEntries. The object.fromEntries method is particularly useful as it allows us to convert data from an array of key value pairs back to an object. So it means this is the inverse of object.entries, which converts an object into an array of key value pairs. Let's understand this with an example. So if you go inside the Visual Studio Code editor, I'll comment out these two lines and I'll use the same person object for object.fromEntries example. Before that, I'll print the person with object.entries method, and with this object.entries, we are getting two arrays as out. Now, after that, I'll write constant object equals to, again, object.entries, and inside bracket, I'll pass the object person. Now, if I log this object with object.fromEntries, object.fromEntries, then in this case, we will see what will be the output. And if I navigate to the browser, you can see we are getting the original object as an output, which means the object.entries is used to convert the object into an array, and object.fromEntries allows us to convert data from an array of key value pair back to an object. Here we have the original object. By using this object.entries, we have converted this object to the array, and then again we have converted that array to the original object by using method object.fromEntries. Okay, so this example demonstrates how object.entries and object.fromEntries can be used to convert between objects and arrays of key value pairs. Now next, in 2020, ECMAScript 11 was released, introducing features like optional chaining and nullish coalescing. These features simplified null and undefined checks, making code more concise and readable. And this nullish coalescing operator indicates with double question mark. This operator is a logical operator that returns the right hand side operand when the left hand side operand is null or undefined. Otherwise, it returns the left hand side operand. Let's see an example of this as well. So here I'll write constant message equals to null, then nullish coalescing operator means double question mark, and then any message. So here I'll write default message, and after that I'll log the message. Now in this case, this is the left operand and this is the right operand. And this nullish coalescing operator returns the right hand side operand when the left hand side operand is null or undefined. And if the left hand side operand is not null and undefined, In that case, it will return left hand side operand. So in this case, the left hand side operand is null, then it should print the default message. Here you can see. If I change it to undefined, again we will get the same output, default message. But instead of null or undefined, if I write any message, then it will print this any message to the console. Here you can see. Okay. So the nullish operator print the right hand side operand if the left hand side operand is null and undefined. Otherwise, it will print the left hand side operand. Hope it is clear. So when we use this nullish operator, we can use this nullish operator to provide a default value when the primary value is null or undefined. Now next, ECMAScript 12 was released in 2021 featuring string.prototype.replace all, logical assignment operators, and many more. These additions improved the language expansiveness and efficiency. And finally, ECMAScript 13 released in 2022, introducing features like top level await and object.hasOwn. These features enhanced the language capabilities and performance. I'll not cover the examples of these two types now, but if you want, kindly let me know in the comments. Okay, so that's all on our journey through the evolution of ECMAScript from ES5 to ES13. And each version brought significant improvements and features to the language. I hope this video has been informative and helpful. If it has, kindly don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to FED Learning for more useful content. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.